Poilievre tried to topple the Liberal government, but the motion failed, and Trudeau still survives. This is the Great White North Report.
I'm in love with the system, never going home. I'm in love.
So last week, Poilievre tried to topple the Liberal government with a non-confidence motion on the carbon tax. Why did he do this? Well, mainly because it's a political move, obviously. Nothing's ever done without some kind of political motivation. But he did it because the carbon tax is set to rise after April 1st. So the price of gasoline will go up by 3 cents automatically. So there's going to be an increase in the carbon tax. It's set to rise by 23% on April 1st, which means consumers can expect to pay about 3 cents more for a liter of gas than they do now. So basically, if you work where you have to drive, then you're going to pay 3 cents more. Public transportation will start charging more eventually because the cost of fuel will go up. Things like heating is going to go up. So if you use natural gas, oil. So when it comes time for farming, farmers are going to start charging more for their crops because they have to now add more for diesel fuel because tractors are run. So Poilievre was hoping to has been going around the country and he's been asking people, and he's got a pretty big response. People don't like the carbon tax. I, for one, don't like the carbon tax. I think it's a bloody waste of time because they claim 90% of it goes back into our pocket. Well, then for all the tax I paid, I should get 90% back. But I don't. Because the people who don't work and stay at home all day or don't have a car, don't drive around, don't do much, they will get the same amount as I do, despite the fact I pay more into it. Go figure. But anyway, his attempt to bring down Trudeau minority over carbon tax failed. They attempted to pass a non-confidence vote last Thursday, and many MPs aired their grievances over the climate policy as well as the state of political discourse surrounding it. Trudeau ultimately prevailed, securing majority support and defeating the motion of non-confidence. Why did he receive support? This was an escalation of the official opposition's pollution pricing pushback, buoyed by the growing cross-Canada resistance to the April 1st carbon price increase to $80 from $65 per ton of carbon emissions. So it used to be we got charged $65 for every ton of carbon emissions. Now it's going to be $80. And Poilievre wanted to push Parliament to be dissolved and the election called. After 8 years, it's clear that this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost, the crime, or the corruption. So Poilievre is really attacking Trudeau right now. Now, why didn't it work? Well, because federal NDP, Bloc Quebecois, and Green MP sided with the Liberals, seeing only the Conservatives and Independent MP declaring a loss of confidence in the Prime Minister. So the final vote was 204 nays to 116 yeas. So why is Trudeau raising the carbon price? Because the idea is to cut emissions 40 to 45% below 2005 levels by 2030. Carbon price is a key part of the Liberals' climate plan. I tell you, I did my part. I installed a heat pump. So the cost of my natural gas has gone down in my home, but my electrical bill just skyrocketed because of this over the winter. Even though we had a kind of warm winter, my electrical bill just skyrocketed. And electricity is supposed to be a clean energy source. So I don't see that price going down. Carbon tax introduced in 2019 has been opposed by most Canadian provinces. And the government offered a 3-year carbon tax exemption for home heating oil and higher carbon tax rebates for people in rural areas. That doesn't help workers who have to drive to work. Because where I work, there's no public transportation from the city I live in to where my workplace is. And if I don't want to move cities, then I have to move to a bigger city where the price of the housing is higher, and there's still no guarantee I'll get to work any faster because of traffic. So the question is, why did Poilievre's push fail? Well, right now the other parties, the Liberals, the NDP, the Bloc, who cares about the Greens really? Those three know that if they were to go into an election with Poilievre today, they would lose big. Poilievre is riding a really popular high right now. Trudeau and Singh have made themselves easy targets. And Poilievre would win an election. Would he win a majority? That remains to be seen. But he'd definitely overtake the Liberals and NDP. The Bloc, who knows what they would do. So the Liberals and NDP know that Poilievre would win the election. They're afraid to go against him right now. It would not be the right time for them. Plus the NDP don't want to lose their special place with the Liberals because they support the Liberal minority government. And they'll lose their supply and confidence. They're getting all these little tidbits and they're pushing harder now against the Liberals to get what they want. So they're politically blackmailing the Liberals the Liberals know that if they can't survive without the NDP, so they have to give in to them sometimes. Just like they did over the motion for the Palestinian vote. Although they managed to water it down, they still push Canada further away from the Israel, which is a thriving democracy, in a war against a terrorist organization. And the people have supported Hamas pretty much. They celebrated October 7th, so why would I reward them? I saw that as a win for Hamas, and it tells you how the shifting demographics in Canada have been thanks to our immigration policies. But anyway, back to this one. That's the one reason why they didn't have the non-confidence vote. It failed because they don't want an election right now. Why did the Bloc not support this carbon tax motion? Because they thought it would fail anyway. And also because Quebec has their own carbon pricing provincially. They're one of 3 areas in Canada that have their own carbon pricing. So the federal one doesn't affect them. So this increase does not affect Quebec at all. So they have no real gain either way. They don't lose, they don't win. So they're quite content with keeping the rest of Canada at odds with itself because it helps their own initiatives, their own agendas. Now, you think the NDP would go along with the Conservatives because the NDP say they support workers. But really, they've failed to support the workers for years. Ever since Jack Layton. He was probably the last one I know of. And I still wouldn't vote NDP anyway. The NDP have jumped on the Palestine bandwagon simply because they're after the Muslim votes that Trudeau lost. And they think they'll gain from that. And they failed to support workers. In fact, they're supporting the unemployed and all the other fringe groups. So the NDP, that's why the NDP has shrunk in popularity in recent years. Simply because they support all these other groups, fringe groups, instead of the workers. And they know if they go into the next election, they're going to lose too. They pissed off a large part of the working force, and only the unemployed who need handouts are going to vote for them. So I don't see an election till 2025 next year, unless something catastrophic happens to, like even this foreign intervention scandal that's going around is not going to topple the Liberals simply because the NDP will continue to support the Liberals, as it's in their best interest right now. But being too closely tied to the Liberals might bite them in the ass. And I think Singh knows that. Jughead knows that, and he's not going to pull the plug on it anytime. He's going to milk it for what it's worth. Then he can go to the places where he knows he's going to win and say, hey, we did this, we pushed this, this, and this, and this. But you also raise tax. Because of that, we have to pay for it. That's why we have inflation, too. People don't understand when you push the carbon price tax and make gas 3 cents a litre more, that means there's a trickle effect. It means the farmer's got to pay 3 cents more per litre for what he gets. He's going to charge that to the mill. He's going to add that to his bill to the mill who buys his grain or crops or whatever. The mill's going to put that on theirs because they got to grind all this stuff up. They got to do the refining. They also have to charge for the trucks to haul it out to where it gets processed to the food processing plants, who then charge for what they use energy-wise and what they have to use to ship it out too. And then the grocery store they have to add on that tax too to what they sell. So it's going to make the cost of food go up. It's going to make the cost of housing go up, because also when you construct a house, you're using heavy machinery to do the initial work, dig out a foundation. Or if it's an apartment building, a crane. They don't run on hydro. Also, with all these electric cars running, then the cost of hydro is going to go up, and because our power grid's not going to be able to handle it eventually. What happens when the power grid goes out? You can't charge your car. You can't get to work. If you have a blackout in your area and your car is charging, you're stuck. So it's going to be there's a trickle-down effect. It's going to affect everything. It's going to make prices go up. Inflation's going to go up. It'll take time to see that, but it will happen. But it makes Poilievre look good because at least he's the one trying to stop the hike. Well, the other parties aren't, and that will be seen as a big win for him, even though he lost. In the next election, he's going to be able to hammer them on this, as he's hammering them now. Poilievre is a really smart guy. He's been around for a while, and he knows that it's his time to try. So I, for one, would have stopped the hike. I would have get rid of the carbon tax. In fact, the carbon tax should be placed on imports from the worst countries around the world, the worst polluters. So India and China are the 2 worst polluters in the world. I would put a carbon tax on any imports we bring into them. it would make the price of goods coming from those two countries more expensive, but then we have the choice not to buy those goods and go somewhere else. That's more of a consensus decision. I'm stuck. I can't go anywhere. For me to go to work, I have to use fuel. The price of an electric car is not worth it right now, and it would just make my hydro bill go up even more than it already has. So any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think about this this push to top of the Liberals. Not soon enough? Too soon? Why do you think it failed? When can we expect to see the next election? Leave comments in the comment section. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.
I'm in love with the